So as you may imagine, I was pretty nerdy as a kid. As a 16-year-old, I convinced my brother to attend an international conference at the local university in our hometown. It was filled with hundreds of scholars of the Dead Sea Scrolls from all over the world. And one evening they had a plenary speaker who gave a lecture that was open to the public. So hundreds of folks filled this auditorium, and we heard the speaker speak on who knows what about the Dead Sea Scrolls. After it was over, he asked if there were any questions. And given the public nature of the audience, no one raised their hand. And I immediately raised my hand as it shot into the air as my brother sank further and further into his seat in embarrassment. I asked the speaker, who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls? He laughed and said, well, that's a fine question from this fine young lady, and went off to explain something about the priestly identity of the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, their Aaronite and Zadokite lineage. I don't remember what. I forgot this until many, many, many years later. I sat in the office of my then soon-to-be dissertation advisor, James Vanderkam, at the University of Notre Dame. I saw the volume, I commented, oh hey, I remember that conference, the International Dead Sea Scrolls Conference of Provo, Utah. I actually attended as a teenager. He said, that's funny, I was the plenary speaker for that conference. It suddenly dawned on me that almost 2 decades earlier, I had sat in the same room and asked the question of my dissertation advisor that I was still asking on that day and would ask in my dissertation and my first book. Who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls? How can we know? What can we know? And how did they understand who they were? How do these questions help us understand the origins of Judaism as we know it today, as well as this new religion that branches off that becomes Christianity? Of course, Islam as well, highly influenced by both religions. These questions, as well as questions about their influence on the development of the Bible, have been questions that now have been guiding me for over 30 years. So here I am today on the shore of the Dead Sea, and you can see behind me on the cliffs, very far on the opposite side, that this is the site of Qumran, where many of the Dead Sea Scrolls were written, and they were hidden by folks who lived in that community. These were found in 11 different caves, nearly 1,000 different manuscripts. This collection or library known as the Dead Sea Scrolls are some of the most important and even enigmatic texts that we have from roughly the time of Jesus, over 2,000 years ago. So join me on this quest as we go to explore who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls and what we can make of this great, amazing archaeological discovery.